Hello everyone, you are on our YouTube channel SAY ON, and in this video I'm going to ask Ken about his experience in Russia.
Okay, go ahead. Here I am in Russia, Krasnodar.
What was your first impression of Russia?
Oh wow, that was a long time ago, 2012. I was fascinated by it. Totally, I don't know what I was expecting, but what I found wasn't anything like I could ever have imagined. And I was genuinely quite shocked at how polar opposite Russia was to what I thought I had been brought to believe.
What was the most memorable thing you experienced in Russia?
Oh wow, too many things. Customer service, a woman who helped me. Yeah, actually it was fascinating. There was a woman in a shop in Ivanova who ended up taking me. I was trying to buy under warm things, which I'm not used to. I was living in Singapore, I'm from the UK, we don't really get cold enough for proper, unless you go skiing. And I was trying to buy that thermal stuff to put on so that I wouldn't be cold, because it was kind of like -20. And I didn't know where to buy anything like that from when I went to the shop that I thought maybe they would have it. And anyway, this woman suddenly disappeared. She said, you know, talking in Russian, it was right at the beginning of my time here. I didn't really understand any Russian. Anyway, she disappeared. And then 2 minutes later, she came back out with someone else. And then she started walking out the shop and waving at me to come with her.
Yeah.
And we went to a lift and we went up 3 floors. And then we went to Sports Direct or Sports Master or whatever it's called. And she told the woman what I was looking for. She waited for me. I tried them on. She then told the woman what I wanted. She went with the woman and gave her her discount card to give me the discount. And then I just paid it. And then when I went to pay it and I went to turn around to see her, she'd gone. And I'd never experienced anything like that before anywhere in the world, in any country that I've ever lived.
And what is unique for you in this situation?
It was just how she went out of her way to help me.
And she was a shop assistant?
Yeah, it was her bloody shop. And that wasn't even from her shop because she didn't have what I wanted. But she took me where I needed to go. And she made sure somebody helped me and she waited. And she even helped me get a discount because she had a sport card.
And what cities in Russia have you been to?
Oh, been to? Well, I've lived in Ivanova, I've lived in Moscow. I lived in a place just outside of Moscow called Podolsk. I've lived in Krasnodar. I've been to St. Petersburg, obviously. Volgograd, where I got engaged. I went to the big Mother Russia thing, which was fairly impressive. Yeah, and lots of little villages and stuff. Been to Sochi, obviously.
That's not a village.
Well, that's a town, that's a city. Yeah, I fly in there from Istanbul and I get a taxi to Krasnodar because the airport's shut at the moment. So. Yeah. And I've driven to Moscow twice from here, which is like 1,000 kilometers, 1,300 kilometers over. It took me. I remember we went driving. We left on Wednesday afternoon. We got back Saturday afternoon, and I just slept for one night. Yeah, that was quite a long haul. And then last year, didn't we do 3,600 kilometers? We drove to Moscow, to Ivanova down to Volgograd, back across to the Don, and then back down to Krasnodar.
Do you do the same in every country you go?
No. I've driven to Kuala Lumpur when I lived in Singapore, but that wasn't really anywhere near as far. And I drive a lot around the UK. I quite often drive to Edinburgh. I'll drive 5 or 6 hours one way and then stay overnight. When I go to get my visas, I have to drive to Edinburgh and it's about a 6-hour drive.
What was the most delicious food you tried in Russia?
Oh, I tell you what, I really like cutlets for a long time.
From pork?
Well, I don't really know what they were from. I just used to eat them and I used to like them, and then your mother wouldn't stop making them for me, and now I don't like them anymore.
Anything else except cutlets?
Your bread is getting better. Initially, I didn't really like the bread because it was too dry, so it's different. I remember when I left the UK and I first went to live in Singapore, the bread was crap there as well. But I guess this is kind of the way you get used to growing up with something. So I'm very used to English or British milk. I'm very used to, and I didn't like Australian milk. Milk here is actually not too bad, but I don't drink milk, I just have it in stuff. But I haven't noticed it different, whereas in Singapore, for instance, for Asia, very different. Australian chocolate as well, which we used to get when we were in Singapore or in Asia. Very different, made very differently to the way it's made in the UK.
So,
and I noticed the difference, whereas here, I love your chocolate, by the way. I love your chocolate and your desserts. They are the
what are your favorite desserts in Russia?
Oh, Napoleon.
Okay.
Well, I don't
Not really Russian.
Maybe not Russian, but it's not this. Do you have too many? I don't really have a favourite dessert. You're very good at making desserts. Little cakes, little chocolates, little things. I mean, you guys have got almost as much chocolate being sold here as you got vodka and alcohol in the shops.
Do you like Olivier or Farine undercoat?
I don't fucking hate furry undercoat things. Herring, I don't like that at all. But I do like Olivier. Olivier's very nice.
Olivier.
Yeah. And I don't like that stuff that you put on that herby thing.
Petrushka.
Yeah, it's awful.
Do you like borscht?
Yeah. Yeah, I like borscht. I'm not a big fan of it. I wouldn't go, oh wow, borscht, I missed it. I need to have some more of it. But it's nice enough.
What was the most interesting cultural experience in Russia?
Well, it's too many.
Too many. Just maybe the recent one.
Oh, the recent one in the bank.
I don't know.
A recent one, yeah. Well, I got a Sberbank account, and it's got lots of different. I've got cards attached to it, and try to transfer from the main account to the card that I've got, and I do it. And all of a sudden, the number on the card changed on my app.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure it out. And I'm looking at the card, and I'm looking at this, and the amount showing on this account was the same as the amount showing on the account when I went to transfer into it, only the account number was different. And I couldn't figure it out. So I went to Sberbank, and they told me it was the same thing, and it was perfectly normal. And I said, why is it normal? Why is it? She didn't know why it was, but apparently numbers can just randomly change and doesn't mean anything, allegedly.
And you have always an explanation, but here in Russia, sometimes there is no explanation.
Sometimes there's just no explanation for something. It just happens and people just accept that that's what it is. Like the elevator doesn't work for 5 days and that poor old guy can't get up from the 8th.
Have you learned to accept things like that?
I think I'm a bit more... I think I'm a bit more conscious of... sometimes I don't need to understand. You keep telling me that. But I do find it quite difficult. But it was funny the other day in the bank. It was just... the card numbers changed. That's okay. Why? Just as what it does. Why? No one seems to know, but everyone just carries on as if it's all right. So, when in Rome and all that kind of stuff.
What Russian holidays or festivals do you like the most?
I love Victory Day. Very moving day, that is. I was fascinated by that. I once walked in that thing, the Immortal Regiment, when I was in Ivanova. Very moving, very fascinating, very... eye-opening. So Russian, you guys seem to be able to hold two emotions at the same time.
Lots of emotions at the same time.
Whereas we're not really capable of that. It's one or the other. So we have Victory Day where we have parties and everyone's really happy, and we have Remembrance Sunday, which is when we remember the dead of the wars, and it's very solemn and it's very sad, and we lay poppies and stuff like that. Whereas you do it on the same day, at the same fucking time, and you're doing this, you're happy, and then what do you call it? Happiness with tears in our eyes or something, is what you call it. I was walking with these guys in Ivanova, and they all had pictures on a stick, on a piece of wood that they had got printed up of their relatives that had died in the war. And there were like 20, 30, 40,000 people all just walking in a line, all forward through the town, all the way up through the city, all the way round. The walk went on for hours, and there were bands, and there was music, and there were people with tears and crying and happy and laughing and clowns and all kinds of stuff. It was just one of the most bizarre things I've ever experienced.
Okay, and the last question for you. What was the most challenging aspect of communicating in Russian?
When I get stopped by a police officer was when I don't have a passport, where I don't have a driving license, where I have no proof of my identity whatsoever. And I'm clearly not Russian because I don't understand a word of it. And then I get asked questions about how's the king, and about Manchester United and stuff, and then I have to figure out that I need to go to an ATM machine and get some dengue.
Yeah. So is it normal for you not to have your passport and your driving license with you when you drive?
Very normal. Yes, very normal. I've very rarely.
How do they check your identity?
Well, they usually check. I guess it's one of the few things in the UK where we take shit at face value. Usually they can check your license plate if you
Okay.
Because we have a registration, if you're in a hire car, then maybe it should be quite easy for them to find out. Sometimes they'll give you a document. Well, I don't remember. I got stopped for speeding. I think I did have my driving license with me then. But there are lots of times when I don't have it with me.
Interesting. Guys, if you have any questions to Ken, write down in the comment and we will video another part of such interview and I'll ask the questions you'll write down.
Я люблю Россию.
Yeah, see you later. Bye-bye.
Пока.